Hi, folks. It's currently 4 o'clock in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, and ACT, and 6 o'clock in New Zealand. And we've come a bit early tonight because, generally speaking, we come at 7. It's just that we wish to give some lenience to our guest who's currently in Hilo, which is on the east coast of the Big Island of Hawaii. And it's pretty late for them over there in Hawaii. They're back on yesterday's time zone, so obviously we're ahead of them. And Julia's organised this particular, well, I think it's going to be an interesting show because there's a bit of history to it and there's a bit of modernism in terms of construction. So there you go. Julia, it's back to you, mate.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode of Dreaming the New Dream with our special guest, Hajjar Gibran. And Hajjar Gibran is a descendant of Khalil Gibran, who was the author of The Prophet. And Hajjar Gibran shares the spiritual and literary tradition and ancestry, and has written a book called The Return of the Prophet that describes his connection with Khalil Gibran and the communications from this well-known and beloved messenger of love. A lot of people, certainly before I met you, Hajjar, I had read Khalil Gibran when I was at university in London, The Prophet, The Madman. And in Australia, when you go to a lot of weddings, they will often quote the poem by Khalil Gibran about the love should be like two setters standing side by side, not sharing love and creating love rather than bonding each other. So we're delighted to have you there. And yes, thank you, Jeff. That's obviously the original book. And perhaps as an introduction, I might just quote some parts of your book. You mentioned yourself in the opening that it was only, after your brother's death, when you were in despair, that your mother came to you after you'd had a big accident and you'd spiraled into despair, and she was left a book by your bedside that you opened at random, and your eye fell upon this line, which was, "Even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you." And you write that you walked into the kitchen and you asked your mother, "Mum, who is this?" And she said, "That's your great uncle Khalil. You should read his book. It's beautiful," she said. You put some dinner on a plate, went to your room, shutting the door, flipped through. The wind was howling outside. Lightning, thunderclaps shook the house. Rain came pouring down. You watched the rain build up at the top of the window, stream down over the panes. Your eyes swelled with rhythmic convulsions. You let go of the storm within you. For the first time since Gary's death, I cried my heart open. That was your first connection with Khalil Gibran.
Yes, I guess it was.
So how long ago did you write this book, Hajjar?
Well, let's see, it was published in 2009, and I spent the previous 5 years working on it. So from 2004 onward.
Mm. And what did it feel like when you sort of packed off the manuscript and sent it to the publisher?
Well, I'm not sure what moment you're talking about, but it was quite, even to this day, it was quite a profound and miraculous experience, a miraculous time of my life that book came through. And I'm still really amazed by it. I've sort of moved on and doing other things with my life now. And but every once in a while I sit down with the book and reconnect with the spirit, Khalil's spirit. And it's I'm not sure how to even start putting into words the mystery and that book is to me, and how inspiring it is, how personal it is. Of course, it's my personal story too. So, yeah, I don't know. Ask me some questions. I'm not sure what to say.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I mean, Khalil Gibran, you know, I didn't actually realize, but he he migrated to the US, and his book's was the best-selling book for many years in America. It inspired Elvis Presley, David Bowie, and Johnny Cash. But reading through your book, you know, you bring the same genre, the same depth and purity through. I'm in your chapter Dawn, which you know is obviously the beginning of your story in this lifetime.
Yes.
And I just love this. You know, it says, "My parents in their love said, though I was born of their flesh, my soul was conceived from life's eternal longing." And that as a child, that you actually had a hard time dealing with the struggles and suffering of humanity. And you list a couple of points, and I don't actually know which country you were in when you were growing up, but it was, you know, you talk about, you know, feeling for the poor, aggrieved multitudes suffering under the heavy foot of the stone-hearted, countless dispossessed children lost and forgotten on crowded roads to nowhere, the hollow babble of hypocritical warlords who assault with pious vengeance, maiming the innocent, leaving the war-torn wailing with terror. And you know, there's a lot of that going on now. But you know, when you were growing up, what was that sort of? What were you referring to? What were your experiences? Where were you?
I was born in South Dakota, in a small sort of agricultural town of about 10,000. And you know, I can't remember exactly what was going on, what I was aware of. I mean, I was aware, you know, my parents had gone through World War II, so they were, you know, I was aware of the Holocaust and just aware of, it's always been, you know, in my youth, it was a real powerful theme of my question that really perplexed me. Like the suffering in the world, and you know, if there's a creator God, why is there such suffering? Why, if God is a loving creator, good creator, then why is there so much suffering and injustice in the world? It's, you know, I remember even as a young boy going to a priest and asking him that, having a private session with him. So, you know, but when, you know, writing a book, it's a creative channeling in a way that book was. And so, even though I'm writing poetically about my youth, it's really, you know, there's a lot of poetic license. Like I'm weaving together who I am in that moment while I'm writing too, even though I'm reflecting on a memory of my childhood. It all sort of, you know, I didn't really so much, you know, write those words from my speaking self as I'm speaking now. They were more of, you know, an inspired channeling.
Yeah, I might set the scene for the audience that, you know, basically, I don't know how old you were when your brother died, and then you, sorry, 18, that's, yeah, and, you know, you've been very close together, and it really pretty much took you to the cleaners, we'd say in Australia, but, you know, you sort of spiraled, yeah. And but throughout it, I think you say that even when you were in jail, you suddenly got this apparition, this man with a mustache who appeared to you, who you didn't know who it was.
Yes.
And he was looking at you kind of like...
Well, I tell you, you know what I'm more interested in talking about is I, I, it really touches me that my book has touched you. And, to me, it's a great gift to meet someone who has been touched by my experience. And I'm just really fascinated. I want to know what that's like for you.
Well, I think I'm kind of jealous because, I think Jeff and I put, well, Jeff sees visions and apparitions. So if spirits come in and, they land on his balcony, actually sees them. I'm a bit blind with warm glasses, eyes operated, but my vision's not better. So, I just love the idea that, it really touches me that, even in jail when you're feeling, you're really at the bottom, that, your great granduncle would, parachute in and make himself visible to you and speak to you just beautiful words of truth. And I didn't discover like channeled words till later in my life. And from then when I went through 5 years of just reading channeled words, because the purity of it completely touched me, and it was just so different of other stuff that I'd read up till that point. There's just a quality where your heart knows and you resonate with it, and it is the truth versus all that words, all those information, all the conflicting information we often get from our families, from the institutions, from the educators, from the politicians, that we kind of yearn for that truth. And I think that's something that both you and your great uncle had. So I'll quote, hi Elizabeth, thanks for joining, and Heidi as well. So what he did say at that time, would you realize that you're in your brilliance in a world that offers you less than it needs you to be? Your light is revealed by the darkness it dispels. So it's just those the bridges that he created and that you create. And you've gone on to, you went on to teach and become a spiritual teacher yourself, didn't you?
Yeah, for a while I did. I'm not really practicing that now, but I'm really impressed by where, just what you're speaking to me. The quotes that you're picking out of the book, I've never had people pick those quotes out and want to dialogue around them. But the ones that you're picking out are really special ones to me. And I'm really kind of just blown away that, you've gone right for the ones that I think were the most important to me. And so I'm just so happy to meet you.
Oh, that's lovely.
Can I just step in there? Hey, do you actually, when you get a piece of paper and you just start writing and it's like gibberish, monkey mind stuff, and then all of a sudden, it's like a ray of sunshine just comes through the dark cloud or the dark, whatever it is that's going on the monkey mind, and all of a sudden you just write, and all that stuff, the monkey mind ceases, and then in comes the that inspiration, that insight of knowledge. Is that how that comes through?
So we've got the kitchen view at the moment. It's presence and silence, Jeff.
No, that's the answer. Let's go to the Hilo there. So big island, Hawaii. It's a pretty impressive part of the world in Hawaii circumstances.
You've been there?
Yeah. We had 16 days there. There's a group of us. There's over 24 of us went there. And we spent some quality time. We actually went right around the whole island and inland. What's most important is that it's got the right in here is these two major mountains in Mauna Lea and Mauna Kea, and They're over 13,000, it might even be more, feet. You know, a lot of people go up there and they suffer from oxygen deprivation. Yeah. But on this particular spot there, they've got, it's like 13 major big observatories. There you go. Yeah, it's a massive place, and they get really good clear skies, you know, to go right into and delve into the star systems, you know. Yeah.
So is Hajjar back?
No, he's actually pulled out, mate.
Oh, maybe he's lost the connection.
Yeah. So I noticed that when we were over there, we had to go and get a AT&T SIM card. Yeah, so the coverage around there is essentially pretty poor. You can't use Sprint. You can't use Verizon. It's essentially AT&T.
Yeah, and I think he's living in an eco village, or you know, some kind of built their own home.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so, you know, when I moved my laptop, I didn't plug it in, and the battery.
Oh.
I'm so sorry about that, Jeff. You were speaking.
No worries.
I've got my iPad here.
Okay.
Oh, the
Just
lighting.
do a quick shout out to the audience while we're there. Hi, Karen. You're on. Yes, Hajjar was having technical difficulties as in the electricity side versus the telecoms.
Okay, let's see. Where's the camera on this? I guess it's right there.
Yeah, the lighting's a lot better too. Yeah.
And just for the audience, the squeaks are actually frogs. Hajjar, what kind of frogs are we listening to? Because they sound different from Australian frogs, I can tell you that.
Yeah, they call them coqui frogs.
What do they look like?
They're little. Yeah, they're real small. But I'm just trying to get this set up. Okay, I guess that doesn't really work. There we go. Well, I apologize for the interruption.
No worries. So we went from 18. Yeah, we can roll with it. We went from 18 and then you writing the book. And then after the book, what happened? What did you do with your life, Hajjar?
I was asking him about when he starts to get a piece of paper and then does he just you go just like a concrete mixer and just bloody empty out your brain cells with all whatever's coming giggly got, you know, boom boom, and then all of a sudden this ray of sunshine comes down and then boom, you just words start to form, and before you know you got sentences, and before you know you got a paragraph, and before you know you got a love letter, you know, from your great uncle. Is that how it works? I mean, what happens there?
Well, you know, there were definitely times like that. Times when I'd be walking and I didn't have a pen, paper with me or any kind of recording, and I could feel it coming. It was like it was something coming from a distance, and I knew it was coming, and I had to run and get a pen and paper so that I could, you know, write it down. And I'm remembering this one time when I was in this place called Dream Canyon in Colorado, and I had to run down the river and across this suspension bridge, and yeah, that was a song. Actually, it isn't in the book, but it was the lyrics for a song. But the book, you know, I had two practices. You know, once it started coming through, then I dedicated myself to it, and I did two practices daily practices that brought it through. One was before I would go to sleep, I would ask my subconscious mind to, you know, answer a particular question, or, you know, I had a dialogue. And then I had a voice activated recorder that I slept with. And in the morning when I woke up, I would just start speaking before I shouldn't say when I woke up, but in that hypnagogic state, before I was awake, before I opened my eyes, I just sort of like grog around, find the recorder, turn it on, and start channeling. And some of it came that way. And then the other practice I had was a meditation practice that I called the voice of love. And I would just sit for, maybe different amount of time, like I would say from 15 minutes to an hour, and connecting to my channel. And then I would write after that. I'd come out of the meditation, take my notebook, and I just wrote to myself. I called it the voice of love, and it was this loving voice that talked to me. So it would, usually start out with, "Hey, Hajjar, here I am with you again, the voice of love," or "I'm here, I'm with you, I know what you're going through, I'm here to love you and guide you," something like that. And then there would be a message that would come. And so some of the book came through that way. I think a lot of it did. I still do that.
Pretty impressive. Yeah. I mean, it's like, almost like writing a love letter to yourself, how you going,
Yeah,
all that stuff.
Exactly. Write a love letter to yourself.
Yeah, and then a couple of days later, you write, and all of a sudden you get this bloody reply that just comes from nowhere, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. It's amazing, when you start relating to the mystical, it comes to life.
I think that I've been watching the parody of the English aristocracy, like the stiff upper lip, and they don't really get in touch with the emotions, and what they really want to do, they can't do, because the aristocracy says, "Oh, we can't do that, and we can't deal with the commoner," and all that stuff. And so they give themselves their own uppercut, in the sense that they're not really getting in touch with their emotions. And of course, then they start thinking about what other people are thinking of them, and so they never make that breakthrough. And now we have a guy like you talking about the fact, no, I don't need all that aristocracy and bloody gamesmanship and one-upmanship, and you can't do that, because that's how our upper class way of life is all about. And now all of a sudden, you come along and you say, you don't give a hoot about what other people think. You just get on with what you're doing, and you've found a way where you can actually write that love letter to yourself and you get a reply back. I mean, I can't see anyone with a stiff upper lip from England, buddy, venturing into the world that you're talking about.
Really? Is that the world you grew up in?
No, I've been to England a few times, but I'm sure Julie would explain that seems to be a bit of a caste system there in England with regards to the so-called earls and the dukes and the so-called aristocracy and the stiff upper lip. We can't do that.
But I'm just, it's just interesting to me that you're talking about them. And how I have this perspective that, we each live in a unique world. We have this myth that there's a world that is somehow the same for all of us. And it's not the case. We each live in sort of our own imaginary world. And I just find it really interesting that you're talking about this stiff upper lip. What do you call them? Ocracy?
Aristocracy,
Aristocracy.
Yeah.
These are like, who are they anyway?
Well, the so-called elites. They all gone to private schools, and we've got to keep up with the Joneses, and
Yeah, but I'm just interested that you're talking about them. Why?
Well, I've just seen the parallel between that type of culture, and then we've got you in Hawaii. They come from South Dakota, and then you've come across into Hawaii, and you've got this historical event with your great uncle. And as we started to move into his 26 poems that he's written, and then of course now you've coming up, and we've found out you found a way where you wrote a love letter to yourself. I really can't see the irony of those people from England doing exactly what you're doing, because that wouldn't be
it's just
in
a
their
completely different
world
in a way.
of operation and how to do things. And you've sort of broken the ice and say, I can walk through the door and I can be who I am. And I've actually found a way of doing it. And you're actually standing up here and explaining to people. I really can't see the people that I was referring to from England standing up here and saying exactly what you've just gone and said about running across the swing bridge in Colorado, get down a piece of paper and write it, or even have a little voice activated this thing by your bed. I mean, that to me tells a person, to me, is really emotionally connected with himself, who understands where he's coming from, and is prepared to, break the mold. I think it's fantastic.
Awesome. Yes. We don't meet very many of those aristocracies here in Hawaii.
You probably have a lot of tourists and backpackers, though.
Well, actually, the side of the island I live on is the last place that people come. There's very few tourists, and the tourists that do come are sort of a special breed of. I mean, it's a real counterculture here.
What made you move to Hawaii? I know that's where Karen met you, so presumably you must have been somewhere else before you did. Tell us more about that.
So I'm just trying to remember who Karen is now.
My Australian friend. She took you to a waterfall the first time you went to Hawaii.
Oh, right. Golly, do you have a picture of her?
A girl from Toowoomba, Jeff.
Do you have a picture?
I think you know Karen as well. And she was living in Hawaii when you visited. You were on a workshop or something, and she must have been gone to your workshop. All right, here you go. Oh, sorry. Okay, Karen's saying sorry. She went by the name Crystal then. That's why you're confused.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, yes, I remember Crystal.
There's a picture of her.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I thought I was losing my memory. Yes. Well, so you asked me like how I ended up in Hawaii.
Yeah.
I want to give you a simple answer because, it's kind of a long story, and I've been coming and going from Hawaii since like 1995. So I thought I was leaving, but it calls me back. They say it's the spirit of Pali, that's the goddess of the volcano, that she calls you here for a purpose. And she, it's usually to transform your soul. That's what she is. She's the goddess of the volcano. She is the great destroyer and the great creator, and she doesn't mess around. And so that's I think my favorite answer is to say Pali called me here. And she didn't really like what she saw the first time. She kicked me out.
Yeah.
Wanted me to grow up. And she, she really put me through a lot. And then I grew up. And she called me back. And so now I'm here.
Oh, that's so tantalizing because I know you've done Hawaiian shamanism as well. So I'd love to understand more about your connection with the local spirits and goddesses and gods. How does it work?
Their shamanic practice. They call it ho'oponopono. It's basically making things right.
Mm-hmm.
And making it pono. Pono means just, right? And when I studied hypnotherapy and shamanism and, neuralistic programming and a lot of different types of, living in Boulder, Colorado, that's like the Mecca, everything is there. And I was really hungry for as much as I could learn. But when I came to the to Hawaii and started learning about their Ho'oponopono practice, it put everything together, because I was already, just taking bits and pieces that worked for me from the things I'd learned, and putting it, understanding it in my own unique way, and working with it. But when I learned Ho'oponopono, or at least the version that I learned, just was a synchronicity of exactly the way I was seeing things. They call it the power of the healing dream. And I realized that I was living, my life is a dream. I'm living in a dream. And the dream always has something unresolved in it. The human condition is that we're not complete. We're a work in progress. There are conflicts in our soul that aren't resolved. There are qualities of our being that we haven't realized yet, that we haven't integrated into who we are. So we're this work in progress, and you can just say that we're, in some sense, a ball of need. And the healing dream is the answer to that need that's relevant in your life. And so that's what that's kind of, and that's what Ho'oponopono does, at least the way I work with it. It's so different for so many different people.
Yeah, I'm just actually wondering if you can elaborate, because and Karen has actually introduced me to that a long time ago, but I've sort of not gone deeply into it. From what I understand, I can't pronounce it, but it's basically the process where you say, kind of go, I see you, where that ball of need or the dissonance is. I see you, you acknowledge it, you accept it, you ask for forgiveness. So I see you, I hear
Yeah.
you, please forgive me, I love you. And like if that's a part of your body, that's kind of
I'm
the
sorry,
process.
please forgive me, I love you, thank you. Yes, that's not what I'm talking about, really. I mean, that's a prayer, right? That's a part of that people associate with Ho'oponopono, and I love that. But what I'm talking about is actually like conscious dreaming. For the most part, our dream is unconscious. Most of our being is unconscious. Most of what motivates us, most of what you could say our core beliefs are, like our entire ancestral lineage lives within us. Who we are and what makes us who we are is, for the most part, buried in an unconscious realm within us. Like our conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg. But the conscious mind is the portal through which we can connect with our higher mind, or our spiritual mind, or our, like all that's unrealized within us, all the unrealized potential, all the answers to our need exists in this realm that we can access through our conscious mind. And that's, you do that in a dynamic, dreamlike fashion, like you interact with it and it becomes real for you. And the reality that, and that's what Khalil is to me, right? Like, I didn't meet Khalil like and shake his hand and, sit down and have a meal together. We met in the spirit world. We met in dream time. He became very real to me in a dream world. And that dream healed me. That dream blessed me. That dream became, my healing dream. It became that I was transformed through the power of that dream. Does that all make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for, I'm glad I asked for you to elaborate, and I'm glad you explained.
Oh, great.
As you say, the dream healing, I mean, here we also have dream time healing. And so, for
The
example, in a
healing
meditation
dream.
last night, in a meditation last night, we facilitated the release of past life vows and oaths. And we're just in this beautiful dream space of healing energies. And, I love this thing about you're pointing out that the potential lies within us. And what we did at the end was that we had this liquid light flowing through all of us, and we channeled into Uluru. And that was like our dream healing for obviously all the suffering that's happened there, or the disconnect that's happened.
Wow. Oh, that sounds beautiful. That's wonderful that you're doing that with. You have a group of people you do that with on a regular basis.
Yeah, lots of us are doing that all over the world, I think. And guess what? We can all talk about it on Radio FM 88 and on other channels. I think that's what, we really are in a sort of springtime in terms of being able to talk about this openly, and, even more so for you, coming from Lebanon and, the Arab Middle East, a lot of them couldn't be doing that, at the moment. So we're very privileged and we're lucky to have that freedom.
Yes, we are.
Right. So
now you've moved on. Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, let's go to the sustainability in the houses and stuff. That's a really interesting subject, I felt. I mean, it's almost like you're taking your creativity into words, and now your creativity is now seeing shapes, platonic shapes, if you want it as such, to create a way of living in a space that's probably more harmonious with the body, the emotional body, the physical body. It's quite interesting. The photos I've seen of your dwellings, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I can talk about that for sure. I've always been, since my childhood, just a builder. I built my first tree house when I was probably, 13 maybe, something like that. And I went through engineering school. I actually studied electrical engineering, but my mind has always been more of mechanical and structural engineer. And I've been a craftsman all my life too. I was a carpenter's helper in high school in the summers, and I was a professional carpenter when I was 18, and I had my own, I've won awards for my furniture design and other things that I've made. So that's okay. So that's a part. Another part is that I've always needed to be free. And so I figured out really early in my life how to live without housing costs. And because I could not allow myself to get trapped in, having monthly bills that, and so I freed myself, and community has always been, I've lived in community, and those have been the best years of my life when I've been living in community. And so I've had this feeling like I want to solve the housing crisis, the costs, those monthly bills. I want to solve that for my community, not just for myself. And so that's a big part of it. And the other part was just life. I didn't I didn't really want to be a builder anymore. I'm over that. And I was really wanting to live into my spiritual life as a spiritual healer and the bringer of the voice of Gibran. And, I built the Gibran Center. That's my bedroom at the Gibran Center. I built the Gibran Center in Thailand. I'd married a Thai woman, and she wanted to create a school in her village for the girls so they wouldn't have to go into prostitution. And so I went there to build her school and ended up falling in love with the place. And we got this really amazing property, and which is an amazing story just about that. But so I was just building the Gibran Center. And then after doing that for 6 or 7 years, everything shifted, and I could no longer stay in Thailand and run the Gibran Center. I could tell you that story. That's a different story. But at the same time, people all over the world were interested in how I was building, because I was just building for myself, for the Gibran Center, and it just caught fire, and I had to leave, and I lost everything while I was there. And so that's a part, I needed to do something, and people were asking how I was building. And then there's another important part too that's kind of eluding me right now. It just spoke to me, but then I was talking. But it's my interest in miracles. This is probably the biggest part. Like, the book came through as an answer to the question, what would I do if I could create a miracle? Because I'd just I'd witnessed a miracle, a shaman. That's a whole nother story. But I witnessed a miraculous healing of a friend of mine who was on his deathbed with hepatitis C. And he was on a morphine drip for pain, and he was on insulin for diabetes. The doctor said he had maybe 2 weeks left to live. There was nothing they could do for him. He'd lost all his hair. He had open lesions all over his body. He asked me to sit with him while he died, a support group. There were 6 of us. And we were all just assumed he was going to die. And we heard of this shaman who had cured someone of hepatitis C, and he offered to come and work with Kurt, my friend, on one condition, that he promised to die well. And he meant that he just leave a legacy of how courageous he died, leave a legacy to his friends and family and community. And Kurt promised to do that. So Shaman X came and performed this month-long fire ceremony and called his spirit back. By the end of the month, Kurt was fully recovered and gained all his weight, was a healthy man who was impassioned with life. And a lot of other people got healed during that ceremony too. And it was at the same time, I was going through one of my personal crises, a big one. And, but there was nothing compared to my friend who was dying. So anyway, it just inspired me to ask the question, like, wow, miracles can happen. So what would I do if I could perform a miracle? And I said, well, I would write The Return of the Prophet. I want to bring through the spirit of my great uncle, because he was, to me, the most inspiring thing I'd met in life. And lo and behold, the miracle came true. And so when that was done, I asked myself the next question: what would I do if I could create a miracle? And I said, well, I would solve the issue of housing in the world. I would provide a solution so that people can have a home. The homeless can have homes, children can have homes, young people can have homes. It doesn't have to be a big deal. You don't have to spend 30 years paying a mortgage to have a home. You know, it's just like given. So anyway, now that's what I'm doing. Working on that miracle.
That's an amazing story. Tell us more about the eco domes, and I'm just pronouncing it Dome Gaia, the company that you founded to provide that housing. Tell us more about the actual homes. You know, Jeff's been showing us pictures of the homes. They're round.
Well,
they look a bit like pulpit domes. What is it? What format and template and model have you been able to settle on to be able to provide affordable and eco-friendly housing?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I've settled, you know, it's still a work in progress for sure. I have some new ways that I'm working that I'm really inspired about. The way we've been, what we're famous for is our aircrete domes. And I coined the word aircrete. It seems like it was less than 5 years ago, I think even after I left Thailand. But and that just caught fire. I was so amazed. I mean, that was a miracle. Just that I made up this word, and all of a sudden, I just got an email from this big engineering firm called Precision Structural Engineering, and they're creating a page on their website dedicated to aircrete. And so aircrete is now a global phenomenon. The material's been around for a long time. I just gave it the name aircrete, and then it's really caught on.
Sorry, just for the listeners, what is the difference between concrete and aircrete?
Well, concrete is a heavy, dense material made out of cement and aggregates, sand. And aircrete, the only thing it has common with concrete is that it uses cement, but no sand or gravel. And you mix the cement with a lather, like imagine mixing cement with shaving cream. And then it hardens like into this concrete that's filled with air. It floats. So it's very lightweight. And but it has the properties of concrete in that it's not damaged by water. It's fireproof. Insects, you know, termites won't bother it. And because it's mostly air, it's really inexpensive and ecological because the primary ingredient is air. You're just hardening these air bubbles with cement. And you can use very ecological cements too. You know, you can make air with magnesium oxide, which is a nutritional supplement. You can really create a healthy house. Just using magnesium oxide and Epsom salts makes a really hard cement, even harder than the cement, Portland cement that's used in concrete. It's just that it's quite expensive and not that easy to access. And I think it's pretty available in Australia. I'm not sure, but we've worked with that. We don't use it that much just because it's so expensive, and we're using it for interior plaster so that your interior space is really healthy with the magnesium oxide. Yeah.
And then how is it shaped? Do you actually, do you actually build molds, or do people build molds themselves?
No, we just set up what we call a compass arm. Like we'll just put a pole in the ground and make it 3 feet high. That way, the widest part of the dome is 3 feet off the ground. So when you walk into the wall, it's not coming in at you. Yeah, the dome you're showing there isn't. Now that one is. But yeah, and so we set up this pole, and then 3 feet off the ground, we fasten what's called a compass arm to that pole, and that'll just swing 360 degrees around, and it basically draws the dome in space because it's spinning from that center point. And then we use that to lay the bricks. So you don't need a form, you don't need to measure anything. You can actually lay the bricks with your eyes closed because you just put it up against the compass arm.
That's ingenious.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It doesn't take a lot of skill. You don't need to be a skilled builder to build. It's kind of like building an igloo in a way. Just imagine taking a bunch of blocks of snow and stacking them on top of each other, and you can carve them so they fit together. Aircrete, you can carve it with a butter knife.
So if people were interested in building it, and a lot of young ones, even in Australia as well, there's it's very expensive to buy a house, and a lot of young ones are just buying land and trying to make something themselves eco-friendly. Would your company be able to train them online, or how does it work?
Yeah, we have a number of students in Australia that are building and teaching.
Yeah.
Yes. We just had a really wonderful Australian woman here for our 5-week workshop. And then she stayed for about a month afterwards. And she's teaching, I think she's in Australia right now teaching. Darlene, I can't remember her last name. But
it's okay. Maybe she can pop on later and put her name in the comment. Maybe she puts it in the comment box, and people will be able to connect with her directly.
Yeah, let me see if I can. But yeah, I would highly recommend Darlene as a teacher and just as a person in general.
Jeff, what do you think about the homes? Do you like the look of them?
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought the subject up. There's a place in the Gold Coast called Canungra, and there is a facility that's come together now. It's called Bush Tuckers Retreat, and now they're building domes, and they're actually building them so they're just under the actual council's requirements, so they don't have to get signed off. And they've had a number of workshops already, and they come down and people learn to make the blocks, and then they set up the same system, that exactly what Hajjar was talking about. Anyway, 2 young ladies up on the Sunshine Coast in Brisbane bought a block of land, and they put their plans before council, and they got knocked back.
Oh.
And so it just so happened that they were so out of the block they wanted to just get into it.
You're cutting off.
They went to the workshop at Bush Tuckers Retreat, and they learnt so much. And there they told them they had this problem with the council. And these people then at Bush Tuckers organised an engineer, and the engineer with an architect drew a whole new set of plans, engineered them off, and they got submitted to the Sunshine Coast Council, and they've been approved. And now the girls are now started to build these massive, the big central dome, and then the other domes off it. So the boys from the Bush Tuckers Retreat are now taking people up to the Sunshine Coast to participate in weekend workshops as voluntary labour to learn the construction of this whole dome construction. I think it's awesome that Julia didn't know what I've just explained over the radio here. And
I wonder if that's
your story.
I wonder if that's Darlene doing that.
Okay, so Hajjar's just sent through Darlene's lesson in a private chat, so we might put that into the comments.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And Karen says
that sounds like something Darlene would be doing. It's either Darlene or another woman named, I think her name is Sharon. came to our very first workshop, and she's been teaching. She taught Darlene, and I think she even paid for Darlene to come in to Hawaii to do this last workshop that we just did. But yeah, they're both really active. I think they're out of Brisbane.
That's where we are.
Oh, that's where you are. They're either there or maybe Byron Bay area.
Yes, it's all quite close. All right, we've posted up. Well, this sounds wonderful, Hajjar. It sounds like, I just love the story that, you sort of, if you're not doing a miracle, what are you going to do? You're going to solve the world's housing crisis. And it's taken off.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just the questions we ask, isn't it? That forms the rest of our life.
Life is a quest.
Life is a quest. I like that.
Yeah. And I mean, what I ask sometimes is like, what's the grandest version of the highest vision of the deepest love that you can dream of life? And just do it as a playful thing. Don't take it seriously, but at least become aware of what it is.
Yeah. Otherwise, we just end up stuck in the mud.
Yes. But you have to be careful too, about getting what you ask for.
Sounds like you're talking from experience.
Yes.
That's wisdom.
Jeff's nodding.
Definitely a man of wisdom. Yeah. Hey, when I was over there in Hilo, Iolani Stephanie, she was our instructor, best way to say it, facilitator. Just out of Hilo, going over towards the Nani Estates, just down the outskirts. She took us to a cave, and because she was female, it was an actual cave for female business. And she had a chat with Pele and asked if us 3 males could actually come with the 23 females, and we went into this amazing cave.
Kalmana Caves, I bet.
It's not up by the planetarium. It's on the main drag as you go out towards the markets.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not all that far off the main road there. So you have to go through a bit of a jungle, then you come down, then you go through the entrance to the cave and go into basically as you're going into the womb. Actually, amazing. And I was very fortunate that the other 2 fellas, one's a Maori elder and the other one was an Aborigine elder, and he didn't want to go because Aborigine culture was males do their stuff, females do the other. And I said to our uncle, I said, listen, I think you understand the Hawaiians are trying to bridge the gap and bring males and females together, not to separate. For this lady to actually go and ask on your behalf or our behalf as males, if we had permission to go in here and she's got it, I would actually relish the fact that she's built a bridge. And I think that's what our culture needs. Well, humanity needs to bring the males and females together and share the knowledge.
Yes. Well, it's nice that you 2 are doing that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we do complement each other.
Yes. That's a gift.
Sometimes we bounce with each other, yeah. Well, Hajjar, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for tuning in from your home in Hawaii and sharing, just those 2 simple questions that you asked that then became key to, all that you've created in this life. Both, and I'll just hold it up for the audiences again, the book, The Return of the Prophet, and the company that you are the founder and the CEO of Dome Gaia, creating the beautiful dome houses that really remind me of Hobbit Land and also other planets that I'm sure are creating a new space where a lot of young people and families and older people can, just
got cut off.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I guess it must be time to
it's okay.
say aloha, because you're getting cut off quite a bit.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the show, Hajjar Gibran, author of The Return of the Prophet, and you've been listening to, and also the founder and CEO of Dome Gaia, and Jeffrey Shaw, producer and owner of Radio FM 88, and myself, Julia Chai. Thank you very much for joining us and dreaming the new dream, and our love to all of you.
Well, so good to meet you, Julia and Jeff. I really enjoyed this.
You're welcome.
Good to meet you.